Hello, this is Miss Moore. Today during chemistry, we're going to continue discussing unit conversions, specifically multi-step problems. You need your calculators today, so make sure you have them handy. So multi-step problems. Today's essential question: how is the factor label method used to convert between units? Let's start with using two conversion factors. Sometimes you cannot solve a problem using only one equality. So let's try a problem like that. We're going to do the problem 0.87 miles, 2 inches. So if you guys remember, the first step is to rewrite the problem as a math problem. So we know we have 0.87 miles, and we want to figure out what that is in inches. And then next, we need to write our grid and put our known in. So 0.87 miles, and that goes over what? The next step is to look at the unit conversion table and find an equality that has both miles and inches in it. So we're looking for miles and inches. So take a moment, pause if you need to, find an equality that has both miles and inches in it. Were you able to find anything? I couldn't. I can find miles to feet, miles to kilometers. I can find inches to feet, feet to inches. Wait a minute. Did you guys hear me say that? Miles to feet, feet to inches. So could I do this? Can I use miles to feet and then feet to inches? So we'll do this and then that. So we'll use 1 mile equals 5,280 feet. And then from there, we can use 1 foot equals 12 inches. Okay, so let's see how that would work. I have the two equalities I'm planning on using right here. So if we look up at our grid, we have miles. So we should start with the first equality, 1 mile equals 5,280 feet. And I put miles on the bottom so that the units would cross out. So now I'm at feet, which is not what I wanted for an answer. So now I will use the bottom equality, 1 foot equals 12 inches. Okay, feet cross out, and I'm left with inches. So I have now gone from miles to inches with all units crossing out. All right, why don't you guys put this in your calculator with me and let's see what we get. When I multiplied across the top, I got a big old number, 5,513.2 inches. And when I multiply across the bottom, I get 1, which makes our answer 55123.2 inches. Now we need to think about sig figs. We look at the number of sig figs in our question, which is 2. So we have 2 sig figs in our answer, which means we'll drop everything from the 1 on. However, we can't just drop them, right? We're going to round down, because if I just dropped them, my answer would be 55, which is not at all the same number as 55,123.2. So my final answer will be 55,000 inches. Next, let's try to do 2 problems in one. So we're going to do the problem 456 miles per hour, 2 kilometers per minute. All right, when I rewrite the math problem, I'm going to write it as 456 miles per hour equals x kilometers per minute. Okay. Next, I'm going to say it's 456 over 1, which hopefully you guys know is the same as writing 456. It's just easier for these problems. So now I have 456 miles per 1 hour equals X kilometers, and we also don't know what that is in minutes. So I'm going to put X minutes. Okay. Trying to do this all together would be kind of confusing. So what we're going to do is split it into two different problems. All right, so the first problem will be 456 miles equals X kilometers, and the next problem will be 1 hour equals X minutes. And when we're done, we'll put the two answers back together and have a final answer. All right, so again, the first problem we're going to do is 456 mile equals X kilometers. So we need to find an equality that has miles and kilometers in it. And there's one right here. So let's use that one. We'll have 1 kilometer equals 0.62137 miles. All right, so step 2 is to write the grid and put in our known, which is 456 miles over 1. We're now going to go back and look at our equality, and we have miles at the top here, so we'll put our miles at the bottom, 0.62137 miles. And at the top we'll go 1 kilometer. And our units cross out, and we're left with kilometers. So if you guys will plug that into your calculators, see what you get, I'll do the same. All right, so I multiply across the top, and I get 456 kilometers. And when I multiply across the bottom, I get 0.62137. From there, I divide, and I end up with a big old long number. I end up with 733.862271 kilometers. Let's go back to our original question. We have 3 sig figs, which are those 3 there. We'll look at the 8, which is 5 or bigger, which means we have to round up. So for the first problem, our final answer is 734 kilometers. Okay? All right, now for the second half of the problem, our question was 1 hour equals X minutes. Now I realize most of you can do this in your head, but we'll go through the steps anyway. All right, so when looking for an equality, we need to look for one that has the units hours and minutes. And that would be that one right there. So our equality will be 1 hour equals 60 minutes. All right, so our next step, let's get rid of this little extra piece there. Our next step is to set up our grid with our known over 1. So we know we have 1 hour over 1. And then we're going to take our equality, which is 1 hour. We're going to put 1 hour on the bottom and 60 minutes on top. Units cancel out, we're left with minutes. And when we multiply across, we end up with 60 minutes. So now we have the answer to the miles to kilometers, which was 734 kilometers. And we have the answer for hours to minutes. And so we're going to put those back together. So we'll end up with 734 over 60 minutes. So now we put those together. So we divide, and we end up with 12.2333333 and more threes kilometers per minute. Okay. In determining sig figs, the number we're going to look at was our given, okay, which was If you remember, it was 456 miles. Okay, we're not going to count the 1 in the 1 hour because we just wrote that number. The only measurement we actually have is the 456, which means we're going to only keep 3 sig figs. So it's going to be those 3 right there. So we're going to look at the 3's and drop them. So our final answer is 12.2 kilometers per minute. So that's how you do a 2-part problem. Okay. If you feel good about this stuff, go ahead and move on. We're going to do some practice problems. So multi-step practice problems. I'm going to ask you to please hit pause and go over these. Try to do them by yourself before you hit play again and see the answers. All right, number 1. Math problem is 0.25 ton equals X ounces. When we write the grid, we're going to put in 0.25 ton over 1. All right, and then for equality, I could not find one equality. I had to use 2. I picked 1 ton equals 2,000 pounds, and then I picked 1 pound equals 16 ounces. All right, so first I'm going to use this one, 1 ton, so I can cross out the ton on the bottom, on the top. So I have 1 ton on the bottom and 2,000 pounds on the top. Ton crosses out. I'm left with pounds, so now I can use the second one, 1 pound, 16 ounces. Okay, pound crosses out. I'm left with ounces. Okay, so when I multiply across the top and the bottom and divide, I end up with 8,000 ounces. Now we need to figure out our number of sig figs. Our measurement here has 2 sig figs, but our answer only has 1 sig fig, right? Those zeros are not significant. So when you come across a situation like that, you have to put the answer in scientific notation because you can't write this any other way and come up with more than 1 sig fig. So what I can do is write this as 8.0. Now I have 2 sig figs times 10 to the 3rd ounces. Okay, onward to number 2. Okay, problem number 2. Problem number 2, when I rewrite it as a math problem, is going to be 22 miles per minute, and I'm going to change it to 1 minute, equals X feet over X seconds. Okay, and so once again, remember we're going to do this in 2 parts. So I'll start with that one. So our math problem is now 22 miles equals X feet. All right, we'll put that in the grid. We'll have 22 miles over 1. And the equality I came up with is 1 mile equals 5280 feet. And when I put that in the grid, I'll put 1 mile at the bottom so that the units can cross out, and 5280 feet at the top. When I multiply and divide and stuff, I end up with 116160 feet. Okay. For part 2, the bottom part, again, you probably could do this in your head. I have 1 minute equals X seconds. So in the grid, we have 1 minute over 1. And the equality is 1 minute and 60 seconds. And when you multiply, you end up with 60 seconds. All right, let's now put the 2 answers together. And that right here, we have 116160 feet over 60 seconds. And when you divide, you end up with 1936 feet per second. But when we go back and look at the sig figs, our sig figs is going to be 2, which means we're going to keep those 2. We're going to have to round down, right? We can't drop, otherwise we'll end up with the answer of 19 instead of, 1900. So we'll have 1900 feet per second. All right, last question. So start with a math problem, which is 324 meters equals x feet. All right, and we'll put our known 324 meters into the grid. And then when I went to look for equalities, I could not find a single equality that went directly from meters to feet, so I picked 2, and I picked 1 meter equals 1.0936 yards, and then I picked 1 yard equals 3 feet. All right, so starting with the top one, because we need to cross out meters, I'll have 1 meter on the bottom, and on top 10936 yards, and meters cross out. So now I'm at yards, so using the bottom equality now, we'll have 1 yard on the bottom so that they cross out, and 3 feet on the top. So when I multiply and divide and stuff like that, I end up with 1062.9792 feet. All right, and looking at sig figs, we have 3 sig figs, which puts it here. We look at the 2. 2 is less than 5, so we're going to round down. So we have 1060 feet is our final answer. All right, that's it for today.